Hey there, howdy howdy, Vossaholic. My name is Voss. I'm an alcoholic. Welcome to the Vossaholic channel. This is a little bonus impromptu. Um, I am downloading videos and content so that it is available to those that I sponsor, friends, people in need during this COVID pandemic odd times. I think we're opening up, but I don't trust the false media, fake news, and who knows, we might be back down on lockdown. So I have 25 years of trial and error, call it what you will, 5 rodeos, 5 years now. Before that, 2 years. Before that, almost nine. And I have had sponsors that have picked me up on like Christmas because I couldn't deal with my family and people around me. So I want to dedicate this little excerpt to anger. Now, it says in the big book, anger is the dubious luxury of normal people. Okay. So, there's questionable ideas and definitions of who normal people are. Regular people that aren't like redlining alcoholics are normal people. That's what I think. So, we can't get angry because we have sort of crippled ourselves with emotional maturity through our alcoholism, whereas we really act a lot more immature than we would have because what we've done is we've emotionally retarded ourselves from years of drinking over our problems. So we get angry, we drink, um, and it numbs that raw emotional feeling. But there's a deep dive here coming, so be ready. Have your masks prepared and cleaned, and your tanks uh, on full because we're gonna dive deep into anger. Okay, so there's a there's a guy in front of you right now, right here. This man who has feelings in sobriety, believe it or not, and I have learned so much about how to deal with my anger. So, I'm going to relate to the big book. I'm going to relate to my life. I'm going to relate to hopefully you. And I got to tell you this. I got to preface this first. I cannot tell you what a blessing it is to have sponsees, okay? Because what they do is they walk you through what I call the ghost of Christmas past. They literally show you what it used to be like for you when you couldn't handle life on life's terms. That's a phrase, life on life's terms, without going right to the bottle, right to the beer, right to the booze, right to the drug. That's what we do. So, yeah, it's sad but true. That's like our go-to button. It's like that. I don't know what it's called. It's the Office Space button where you hit the red button, um, and everything gets clean and neat without doing the work. It's like instant and immediate gratification. Um, our lives to handle our problems takes work. So, I have had times in my life where I was insanely angry at someone that was doing something that I couldn't impose my will to affect them to stop, to basically have enough exertion of my control over them that I felt was necessary so that they would make me happy. Now, it's a power issue, really. It's a power issue. So if we're trying to have control over others in our kingdom, our domain as men, we sometimes have too much pride, or maybe we have realistic concerns where we have family members with us that are income earners and they need to follow through on their obligations, whether it be babysitting, house chores, duties, their role, their expectation, and you have to deal with that. And when you're newly sober, the only off button we have for our feelings, whether they're good, bad, ugly, or indifferent, is to drink or use drugs, right? That's our go to. So, my background, I had a lot of anger issues because I didn't have a dad. My mom had a lot of anger issues because she was obese and she probably had molestation problems, and a lot of women will wear a fat suit, that's what I call it, and they'll become morbidly obese so that they don't have any triggers of affection from men that lead back to their feelings of shame and guilt with the molestation. And that is horrendous. And that's a real thing. I've seen it, boots on the ground. It's rough. So, that's a little bit overkill, but it just tells you that I had an angry mom I had a very angry mother growing up. And what happens in the brain, okay, and you can watch this movie, it's called What the Bleep Do We Know? Like, What the F Do We Know? And it's a trippy movie. You're going to have to find it on Amazon, Hulu, DVD. Track it down, do the work, find that. However you can get it, watch it. And it's about quantum physics, but it also talks about, big word here, look it up, polypeptides, okay? Polypeptides are chemicals released in the brain for things that we love. And so if it seems like most of the seven deadly addictions, but it kind of is. So as human beings and we evolve into adulthood, if we get sort of a high from being a rageaholic, because that's a thing. I had an uncle who was called that before, and I've seen his rage. It's sort of entitlement, and it's sort of like you know, and this is in the big book, self-justified anger. Okay, so we justify our emotions that they're they're legitimate and they're important and they're purposeful and they're really necessary. But we have a broken magnifier in our mind, a broken perception and perspective on things as diluted alcoholics in our cups when we get sober. And we sometimes will go overkill. We'll go just off the rails, off the deep end, you know. And in my own personal story, I was, like I mentioned, almost 9 years sober. Um, fell off the wagon to a resentment that I didn't list on my fifth step, dealing with a person in my family's inner circle who had done some things that really upset me, hence the resentment. And I ended up having to deal with this person. And if you're my sponsee and we go through the fifth step, I will share some of my stuff with you in a personal one-on-one manner, because that's what sponsors have done for me, and other friends have told me their sponsors have done that. So I'm speaking kind of rapidly. I don't know how much time I have, but I'm deep diving into all that I know about anger. So anger is toxic. It's a negative emotion. There's always a consequence, and we don't see it when we're in blind rage. Um, and also, on to anger, it starts off usually with confusion, miscommunication. So usually it's something like we become assumptive, and we have an assumption about something that was supposed to occur that didn't our way, under the possible terms and the communicable terms with the other person. So there's an expectation set, and back to expectations are resentments under construction. And resentment is a big factor in anger. And look, when we get angry, we want to drink. And when we don't share that, or what's been going on with us, or what's happened with another alcoholic or our sponsor, a beloved friend, clergy, what have you, and we don't unload that, half that burden will be carried and shared by them. We implode. We implode. Now, these words that I use, if you don't understand them, look them up. If you're a visual learner, you need to see something implode. There's probably videos on YouTube where a tank is so down deep underwater that it might be it's so weird. It might be a strong metal container, but it'll actually collapse on itself and implode, an implosion. And that's how we roll. I've heard from one sponsor that anger is depression turned inward. Okay, and I can totally relate, because when you can't express your anger, you just sit there and you're numb. You're like emotionally paralyzed. Sometimes anger becomes depression and becomes an emotional paralyzation. So I would suggest exercise, talking with a sponsor that you trust, your sponsor, your your buddy up guy, the guy in your recovery that you guys have similar paths and same time in sobriety, and you're on the journey together. Even all of them, even let it out. What we do though is we get entitled and justified. I'm going to show them. I'm going to do my will, which is not God's will. It's my will. It's the person's will. It's self will run riot. That's a book term. So yeah, I was asked to. Well, I knew that it was important for me to get a AA commitment. I was a greeter at a 2 month Saturday meeting commitment on Saturdays, 12:30. I'm kind of repeating my words. I'm very nervous to share this story. I got pushed, okay, physically pushed out of a fear. Person had a fear I was going to go after someone who there was a loud verbal confrontation with because their behavior and conduct was not proper or appropriate before the meeting. They were loud, distracting. And my role, and it was kind of a stupid role, but you're the greeter and then you shut the door and